Babysitters, what's the most unsettling thing that's happened while you were babysitting? Serious. When I was in high school, I used to babysit for a family that had a glass door off their kitchen, and whenever I'd get something out of the fridge for the kids, I'd think to myself how scary it would be if someone was just standing there looking in. One night it was storming really bad, and I went to get one of the kids a glass of milk, and lighting flashed, and a filthy man I'd never seen was standing there framed in the glass door staring in. I screamed and yelled for the kids to go hide. Of course they didn't listen and ran into the kitchen. Turns out it was their uncle stopping by to drop off something he had borrowed. He worked construction and had gotten quite muddy and was just going to leave whatever it was by the door, which is when I saw him. So it ended up being a case of nothing, but the terror I felt when the lightning lit him up was pretty intense.
So I used to babysit for the lady who lived next door to me a few years back. Her children's room was the bedroom that shared a wall with me. While putting the kids to bed, I heard someone moving around my bedroom. The walls were stupidly thin. One of the children told me that they hear the noise a lot. My parents weren't home. I didn't want to go home.
Was babysitting my niece? She started crying in her crib upstairs, so I paused Netflix and went up to check on her. The lights were completely off as to not wake her up more. As I was standing in this completely dark room soothing her, I heard voices downstairs in the living room talking about breaking in and taking things. I had been alone in the house, my cell phone was downstairs, and my sister wasn't coming home for another 4 hours. I was freaking the beep out. After what seemed like forever, I got up the courage to go check out the noise. Only to find Netflix had unpaused and it was a heist movie I was hearing.
I live in a small town and our prized possession is a rather large mental hospital. I got a call from the parents telling me to lock all the doors and windows because a dangerous patient had escaped and was in our neighborhood. I told the kids to stay inside, but didn't tell them the reason in order to not freak them out. I went to change a diaper, and when I got back, the oldest boy, of 8, was missing. I immediately started panicking and went to look in the backyard. He had decided that was the perfect time to pee outside because the outside potty was better. Bonus: I babysat 2-year-old twins and they often burped and farted at the same time. It was terrifying.
When I was 14, I got hired to sit for brothers, ages 10 and 12. I felt pretty weird about it because, 12? Even by the time I was 10, I was sitting for my younger siblings. But I was like, well, their parents must think they need someone there, and who am I to turn down a king's ransom of $2 an hour? It was the early 90s. It was a nighttime job, so I got the kids into bed at their bedtimes and settled in to do homework and watch MTV until the parents got home. I looked up to find the 12-year-old had emerged from his room and was jerking off. Just right there in the doorway, staring at me. I was like, and he was like, "It's okay, I'm 12. I was like, "I don't think it's okay, go back to bed." But he just lingered in the doorway for the rest of the evening and finally sprinted off to bed when he heard his parents' truck in the driveway. I didn't tell them what happened and never sat for that family again.
My sister was babysitting and I got a screaming panicked call from her. She was putting one child down for the night, a girl around 3, I think, and the little boy, around 6, stopped playing, grabbed a chair, unlocked the front door, and left the apartment. She was distraught. I told her to call 911 and I'd come help her with the toddler. When I got there, the police were talking to her and wrapping up. Thankfully, even though it was dark, 2 older women had been out for a walk and found him wandering down the sidewalk of one of the busiest roads in town. The weirdest thing is that the parents were completely unfazed. They apologized for not telling her he had done it before and wanted her to babysit again. My sister never babysat again.
Babysitting my cousins when I was like 10 and the 3 of them were less than 5. Babysitting is in quotes because their mom was home, but I was in charge of them in the bedroom. She was in the living room with my oldest cousin. I was playing with one of them when the youngest, about 2, started coughing, holding his neck. I clearly remember just standing there for 5 seconds, stone cold, completely bewildered. I had no idea what to do. I just froze. Luckily my oldest cousin somehow heard the baby choking and he rushed in. He grabbed the baby and pulled a Barbie shoe out of his mouth, while I still stood there, shocked. I got an earful from my aunt and mom for nearly letting the baby die. I'll never forget it. I wasn't afraid, I wasn't scared, I didn't feel anything. Just froze. Let this be a lesson to never let 10-year-olds watch babies. They're just not equipped to deal with disaster, or at least I wasn't.
The estranged husband showed up, drunk, demanding to see his kids. Tried to break into the house. I called the wife and the police. Never babysat for them again, even though the wife was very nice, just too traumatizing for all. The husband moved away, I believe. Wife is remarried and much happier.
My babysitter quit because my house is haunted. She started having experiences about 6 months into watching my kids. She had one in my bedroom where she went to put some laundry on my bed and she said she felt someone breathing on her neck. Then another time my daughter, 7 years, who always talks/makes friends with the spirits in my house, was upstairs sitting with her babies and stuffed animals in a circle around her. She was carrying on a full conversation with them. The babysitter asked her who she was talking to. My daughter proceeded to pick up a bear from the circle and introduces it to her as Mr. Mischief Bear. Mr. Mischief likes to whisper bad things and tells her to do bad stuff. Then she started having nightmares of a man that had black holes for eyes in my house. Finally, the last 3 times she babysat, she called me, each time crying. Once she had a friend die, another she found out her BF was cheating, and the final time she sat frozen on my couch watching the door to the upstairs opening and shutting by itself. Needless to say, I no longer have a sitter. I'm aware of the spirits in my house. They don't scare me but are actually just a nuisance and oppressive.
As a teenager, I was watching a 4-year-old and a baby for the first time when I got really dizzy and felt awful. I called my mom for help. She yelled at me for a bit and told me I'd have to call the parents to leave their date, because she wasn't coming. I said they hadn't left a contact number and asked for help again. She told me to figure it out. I passed out trying to call 911. The last thing I remember before I fell asleep was that they had a pool and terror for the kids. The 4-year-old put his sister in her car seat because she kept trying to go near the water, and then stayed by me to wait for an adult to return. His mom's sister found me unconscious on the floor. She hit me and that brought me around enough to stagger to the car as long as I could lean on something. In retrospect, I'm sure she thought I was high. She offered no help and was livid as she drove me home. I was already a pretty depressed teen, and the shame at not being able to get help for the kids meant I got home and just sort of waited to see if whatever was making me collapse would get worse. I passed out again after getting home, threw up a few times, and then started getting better. I was woozy for several days after. Still no idea about what caused that. I refused to babysit for anyone for months afterwards. The idea of what could have happened was horrifying. But yeah, going from okay to passed out on the floor while trying to dial 911 is the worst thing that ever happened to me while babysitting. With that family.
Tornado warning with sirens.
Growing up, my friend's mom worked as a babysitter. She was stay at home, but then when dad was home, she was free to go babysit for some other family and pull in some extra cash. Kid she was watching had SIDS. Sudden infant death syndrome. Completely shattered her as a person. She left home. I don't know if she ever came back. At least that was the story I was told. Thinking back now, I suppose it could have been one of those situations where something horrible and violent happened. She ended up in prison, and I got told a sanitized version.
Had a baby come in to the medical examiner years ago who was accidentally suffocated by the babysitter's titty. 14-year-old babysitter. There were no winners that afternoon.
The 12-year-old pulled a gun on me. A real loaded pistol. No reason. Just for the lols, I guess.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.